if you would join me. A lot of times we get a lot of recognition up front here, and thanks for our service. I'd like everyone to remember those who given their life already. Please stand and have a moment of silence for all those who've given their life, that we can enjoy this meeting. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. The word support, I don't know if you realize, the word support means everything. Had it not been for support, I wouldn't be standing here right now. You know, I think about my father who came in the segregated army in the early 40s. He was the driver at the time of the Tuskegee Airmen, who inspired me, and I fell in love with airplanes. My mom and dad even have to put out their wedding anniversary in November of 1940, and they were married in November of 1942. And they've gone to rest, and they're the reason I'm standing here tonight. So I take all things with humility because I was raised, as I like to call it, the right way. The love, the discipline, the support, and the support. So then my oldest brother comes along. He served the United States Navy in the 60s. Then my next brother served the United States Army. I saw them coming home, and I didn't see any respect. They were taking the uniforms off. It was a different time in our country. So the support I see tonight and over these last few years, being associated with the veterans and outpouring in social media and things of that nature, it's nice to see that we've come a long way from the 60s when I saw our men and our troops coming back, and I was influenced as a young man. So I chose the Air Force. And I came in doing Vietnam, and my first assignment was to Vietnam, and my orders were changed in 1972, and I was rerouted to Bitburg, Germany. So that's where my life and my journey began. So in serving there, I think someone spoke about the cultural shock. 20 years old, coming from the streets where it was either a gang in LA or the military. That was kind of like our options. Well, dad, big brother, next brother, well, I just followed suit. I always wanted to travel, but I never knew how. So I always admired a pilot, and I always looked up to firemen. So I joined the Air Force. I started traveling as a mechanic. I got out, came back to the United States, but I was stationed in Germany. And I re-enlisted, but this time to go on flight status. Unfortunately, I actually had to sue the government because I was disqualified because I had a condition called sickle cell trait. Not the disease, but a trait. So I decided to challenge it, and it took about 2 or 3 years in court. But eventually, we won the case, the appeal. I went to flight school, and I haven't stopped traveling since. I flew for the Air Force for 10 more years. I had a major injury, and I was medically retired. But my total time was from 72 to 92. As I stand before you now, I am 100% disabled. But when I hit my fall, not knowing what happened to me, before you know it, I was in Long Beach, sleeping in a car, on heavy medication for PTSD. Taking antidepressants, anxiety pills, pain pills, you name it, I was taking it. And I was comfortable living in a 2004 Nissan Sentra that didn't even belong to me. At 6'2", my back injury started to catch up with me, but I didn't know what to do. So I went to the VA one day for treatment. I heard about Veterans First, way down in Santa Ana. So I found my way down there, and I met Deanne Tate. I Deanna, for those who don't, please stand up. Seriously, please stand up. Please stand up. So to understand what we do at Veterans Outreach, I usually didn't want to talk about things like this, but I was convinced that you're not talking about yourself, but what you're doing, you're sharing with others who support the military troops and our veterans. I told her my story, and she said, "Where did you sleep last night?" I said, "The same little car I've been sleeping in for 13 months. This was, yes ma'am, this was approximately 4 years ago. And she said, "You will not sleep in that car again. And I'll stand before you tonight. I've never slept in that car again." I put a little mask in there. I never slept in the car again. So the shelter I entered in, I immediately was around other veterans. And where I was close-knit and I didn't want to talk to anyone, I was withdrawn from even my own family. With the camaraderie with the other veterans, I opened up. I started talking to other guys. I realized other gentlemen are going through the same thing that I'm going through. So I wasn't the Lone Ranger. But it was a camaraderie that reminded me why I served in the first place. That's a hard thing to explain. It just is camaraderie. And that in itself is support and therapy. So now comes looking at life a little different, not being bitter about what happened, wondering how I got here. But I realized I was actually influencing others. So I said, I'm supposed to be here. Things happen that I'm supposed to be here. And then I became a house manager. And then one day Ms. Tate asked me, would you consider being the executive director? So I stepped up. We had 4 houses at the time, and now I'm overseeing 4 houses. Then she wants us to retire. Well, she needs a president to run the daily operations. So I said, I wonder who we can find. So I looked around, and she's looking right at me. So I took the challenge and became the president of the organization. And I still see a PTSD shrink who feels that it's a little burden sometimes with the daily operations. So Ms. Tate and I sat down and talked, and she said, well, you can get more in the background and get out in public and share your story. And now I'm the chairman of the board for Veterans Outreach. So I'm just one of the examples, because over the 25 or so years that Veterans First, before we became Veterans Outreach, thousands and thousands of gentlemen have been helped by Veterans First. I'm just one of them. Again, the support, you guys coming out tonight, when I hear thank you for your service, that resonates. I've had people ask me or tell me, you don't look homeless. What does homeless look like? You don't look like you're 100% disabled. Well, what does a disabled look like if they think because you're not in a wheelchair? But I have the wounds that when I have nightmares, I have damaged skin where I literally self-mutilate, scratching. These are things that are unseen. When I'm out in society, I'm pretty normal, I like to think. But when I'm alone and you start reflecting, you have to tell your mind sometimes to shut up. And I'm trying not to get back on these drugs that take me somewhere else. But the point I really want to hit home on is our veterans. And I'm honored to be in the room tonight, and I also thank other veterans, more so than I do myself. And those of us who came in maybe from the older, we're called the old school, a little bit different breed. But at the end of the day, we're all the same. We're all on the same team amongst each other. We real Marines, Navy, Army, Air Force. Let's not forget our Coast Guard.
Coast Guard.
Okay, those guys are 24/7. When you think about all the borders of our country, they all often get overshadowed. So we now have 3 houses. We have about 60 beds filled to this date. So
Awesome.
your continuing support is appreciated. Again, thank you for coming out. I can tell you stories all night long, but for the sake of time, for the sake of your time as well, I can thank you and the quilts. My God. Oh, real quick. It must have been meant to be. My quilt was actually prepared by a lady named Martin, which is my name. Now, that Vice Chancellor. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you all very much. God bless you.
I'm going to bring up our last speaker tonight, and that's Captain Sung